What's up everyone, Eli here, back for a CD collection video. I'm kind of cheating. I have 11 CDs today instead of 10 to show you, and only 2 different bands. So one of them is an entire band's discography, and I'm also cheating, not really cheating, but I kind of yet again got mixed up with my alphabet. I am skipping ahead a little bit by accident. There's a couple of bands that should have gone before this video, but fuck it. I already had it ready, and I'm just going to roll with it, and I don't think it matters anyways. But hope you guys are all doing well. We're starting off with the second album I own from this dude. The last thing I would ever buy from him, not to say that his current stuff is bad, I guess I kind of lost interest. We're talking about 2010 After by Isan. Candlelight Records. This is his 3rd full-length album, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I am a big Isan fan. I'm more of an Emperor fan than I am just, his solo stuff. I think his solo stuff is really cool, though. The first album that I showed in my last video, that was more of a kind of like a slightly progressive heavy metal album, and it was really cool. This one is way more into prog territory. You got saxophone stuff on here, which really works. This is, so way more progressive, way more atmospheric, but still extreme, still heavy, and still very much metal. Yeah, I think this is a really good album. I want to say this, to me, it's his best album, but I haven't heard all this stuff. This comes with a bonus DVD, by the way, that I've never watched before. What comes on it? Making of the album, interview with Isan. Oh, and some live stuff. Dude, this actually has an entire live set. I'm gonna have to watch that. That sounds badass. So, anyways, Isan After. What do you guys think? Where do you think this sits in his discography? Like I said, I really want to call it his best because it's a really strong album. But I haven't heard shit like the latter half of his discography, so I'm gonna have to catch up. But stellar album. So, the next 10 albums. I think 10 or 9. The next 9 albums are actually all going to be all one band. This is a band very near and dear to my heart. One of the earlier black metal bands I got into, and to this day, one of my favorites, if not my favorite altogether. I think you probably have guessed by now. If you haven't, we are talking about the albums of Immortal. Obviously, I don't need to try and give you a history lesson on Immortal. We all know who they are. Most of us like them, if not love them. I just have always really gravitated towards their music. I didn't get into them until the early 2000s, however. So they already had most of their discography was out at that point. But, that's okay. Yeah, I just never ever seemed to tire of this band. I could listen to any of their albums at any given point and get into it, though, as we'll talk about here in a little bit. Some of them I like a lot more than some others, but I don't think any of them are even remotely bad. So we're starting out with their debut, obviously 1992's Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism. This album sounds very much kind of a lone wolf in their discography. They would never really sound like this again. This is more Bathory-esque, primitive black metal, and it's great. This is a fantastic album. It has, one of their best songs they ever wrote, The Call of the Winter Moon. So good. God damn, what a way to not only start an album, but to almost start a band. I mean, don't get me wrong, they had like I think a demo and an EP before this, but as far as their albums go, what a way to kick it off with just a black metal classic. So like I said, yeah, this album it's much more primitive sounding than they ever would sound again, and I mean, there's just so much charm to be found on this album. I don't have the original pressing. I have the Osmos. Let's see here, The End, licensed from Osmos. Anyway, I don't know. This probably came out in the early 2000s. This version, this repress, but yeah, Osmos would put out their first handful of albums, and yeah, I mean, what a way to start off a career, right? Then we are moving on to By the way, this is the only album to feature Armageddon on drums. I really meant to say that. Because the next album, we're talking about Pure Holocaust from 1993. This might be my favorite album from them. It's just so hard for me to say. This is damn good. So on this one, you're gonna have the core lineup basically of all the earlier stuff had Abath and Demonaz on guitar. So this album would feature, though it shows this guy right here. This guy passed away. I don't remember his name. And don't quote me, but please correct me. Was he in Gorgoroth? I can't remember what his name is, and I can't remember what other bands he was in. But anyways, he doesn't play on this album. Abath actually, Abath plays the drums on this album, and he did it on the next one too. I mean, what can he not do? But anyways, so this is still definitely a primitive sounding black metal album. I think it is, maybe a little bit faster, a little bit tighter musicianship, tighter songwriting. I don't know if I would say it's a huge step up from their debut, because that was just such a goddamn good album. But this kind of painted a picture of kind of what would come. I can hear a little bit of Pure Holocaust on all the albums that came after it, but this album is fantastic. It's a black metal classic. If I were to choose maybe 5 black metal albums out of Norway from this time, this would make that list, which is saying a lot. So Pure Holocaust, amazing album. And for album number 3, we're talking about 1995's Battles in the North. I love this album a lot. This is probably one of my top 3 or 4 albums from these guys. This album kind of takes what they did on Pure Holocaust, and I'm not going to say it's necessarily a better album, but they took what they did on that album. They made it kind of more extreme. It's faster. I mean, this album is just a fucking insanely fast hailstorm of an album. Not many black metal bands capture that feeling of being caught in a snowstorm quite like Immortal. And this kind of goes with what I just said about it being a really fast album. It is, but it's also been said many, many, many times over the years that they actually sped up the recording in the studio, to make it sound faster than they could actually play. Now that I say that, I've always wondered if there's actually any truth to that. If any of you guys know that to be a fact, let me know. I'd be really curious to know. But yeah, I love this album. This is, one of my favorite Immortal albums. Just the title track, Battles in the North, just sets the tone for this entire fucking album. And just like on Pure Holocaust, you got Abath playing drums on this as well. But this would be the last Immortal album that he would play drums on. But I don't know. I thought he was a decent drummer. I think his drumming fits. He's clearly not as good as Horg, who they would get later on. But yeah, that's absolute timeless classic in my opinion. Absolutely love this album. Battles in the North. Moving on to their 4th album. I always forget this is their 4th album and that it came so early. Probably because, yes, I've listened to this probably at least 15 times over the years, but I've never owned it until recently, and I still only kind of own it. My good buddy Kevin Full Metal Ginger sent me this Blizzard Beasts, just the CD, not the case, or not the booklet or case or whatever, because Kevin's a cheap bastard. Come on, dude. You couldn't send me a booklet to go with it? No, I'm just kidding. He didn't have it. This was just, he just had this extra CD lying around. He found out I didn't have Blizzard Beasts, and he sent it to me. It was a while back, but this is one of my least favorite Immortal albums, but one of my least favorite Immortal albums is still at least a 7 to a 7.5. That just speaks to the quality of the band's music and of just my overall love for the band. So this album, as much as it may not be not even close to being one of my favorites, it's still a cool album. And the good thing there are some good things I can say about this. Those would be This album is really, really fast, really, really heavy, and it's just really, really evil sounding. And where it kind of sounds different than the other albums, I think it kind of, and the band has said it themselves, there's kind of a death metal edge. They were touring and playing shows with death metal bands at the time, and yeah, Abath has even said that totally rubbed off on them, and they kind of wanted to write. It's not a death metal album, but they wanted to incorporate some of that brutality into their riffs and stuff, and it really shows. I think this album is a little bit formulaic. It's a little bit, maybe it doesn't have the standout songs to me that I know and love Immortal for. And I know this album does have its fan base, and I know some of you will disagree. And I'm not saying that I think it's bad. I just don't think it has nearly as much character as the majority of their other albums. But it is still a really fun one to throw on from time to time. So yeah, Blizzard Beasts. And then moving on to 1999, their fifth album, we have At the Heart of Winter. I also have this on vinyl, nice colored vinyl. This album is another kind of controversial album in their catalog. People seem to either love this one or hate it. A lot of people will say this is their favorite Immortal album, or at least top 2 or 3. But then there are a lot of people that are like, yeah, that's the worst album they ever did, which I kind of fall somewhere in the middle. This is, to me, definitely not, the worst album they ever did. I think it's really fucking good, actually. In fact, I would say that it not all songs on this album are equal. Withstand the Fall of Time, the first song on the album, is one of the best songs they ever did. It's that, to me, is just by itself is a black metal master class in songwriting. Oh my god, the riffs, the way the song is written, just the way that it's paced. Oh my god, I could listen to that song over and over and over again. I think it's one of the best black metal songs ever written, and it's definitely one of Immortal's best songs. A lot of the material on here is very thrash metal inspired. Not all of it. Some people, I've seen people say, "Oh, that's like Immortal's thrash album." Totally disagree with that. It's not thrash influenced all the way through, but there is, on some of the tracks here, it is strong. So sometimes I can hear maybe some some of that early 80s Teutonic thrash metal out of Germany. Maybe like Destruction. I think I maybe can hear some Destruction influence here. Abath and Demonaz are huge fans of Possessed, and oddly enough, they really like the second Possessed album, Beyond the Gates, which I always thought was awesome because I love that album myself, and I think it's underrated, which not a word I like to throw around too much, but yeah, man, At the Heart of Winter. I did I show the inside? I don't know. Absolutely mandatory for me, at least. Moving on to their to album number 6. I'm hoping Stand in Black. I think this came out. I think I'm doing this right. I think this came out after At the Heart of Winter. Probably in 2000 or 2001. And the reason I'm sounding kind of iffy on this one is because this is probably my least favorite Immortal album. Clearly, I can't remember what year it came out. I can't remember where it sits in their discography, though I do think I am correct. It's not a bad album. Again, Immortal never had a bad album. They're just not capable of putting out a bad album. At least it's yet to be seen, in my opinion. I don't know. It's this does kind of sound like maybe if you took Blizzard Beasts and maybe some of the stuff that would come after this. It does kind of sound like that to me, but I don't know. It's brutal sounding. Not as brutal as Blizzard Beasts. I much like Blizzard Beasts, I just don't think this album has nearly as much character as some of their best work would have. I'll throw this on probably once every couple years. 50% of the time, I'll be like, this is really good. And then the other 50% of the time, I'll be like, yeah, this is their worst album. But that said, it's still at least a 7 out of 10. So I don't know how you guys feel. Feel free to disagree with me if you want. I'm totally fine with that, obviously. You know how I am. All right, album number, let's see, where are we at? This is, I think, album number 7. I can at least say for sure that this came out in 2002. This would be the first and only album to feature Iscaria on drums. Iscaria, fellow Norwegian, he's played in, he's an old school guy. He's been playing in black metal bands, smaller, lesser known black metal bands out of Norway, though, for decades and decades. This album right here, though, this is, I know you guys are going to hate me, but this is potentially my favorite Immortal album. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and say that it is. I see a lot of people over the years saying that this is by far their worst album, and for me, I just can't get on board with that. Oh God, I love this album so much. They kind of had a new sound on this album. This album it still sounds like Immortal, but it stands apart from everything they did prior to this. It's got a bigger production. It's maybe a little bit cleaner sounding. I think their musicianship was at an all-time high, and I think their songwriting was just so tight on this album. Like, I do think that almost all the songs, if not all the songs, they're all mini epics. They all sound, I'm a big fan of bands, or albums, I should say, that have songs that stand apart from each other. You're never going to get any of these songs mixed up with one of the others. You're never going to mistake a song for another song. To me, that's just mature songwriting, and yeah, I absolutely love it. I am going to say I'm gonna I'm gonna put my foot down. This is my favorite Immortal album. Doesn't have to be yours. I know it probably won't be. But like I said, that's totally fine. We can disagree on things. So after that, they would actually have a pretty decent gap. If I remember correctly, I think they pretty much broke up as a band. Either that, or they went on a lengthy hiatus for about 7 years. Actually, they would come back with All Shall Fall, which I'll be honest, this is an album that never really grew on me. I do like it. I think it's good. It just doesn't do as much for me as probably, I don't know. I might like it more than Damned in Black, but it's hard to say. This does, this sounds, it definitely sounds like a successor to Sons of Northern Darkness. For me, this is like Sons of Northern Darkness's kind of weaker younger brother. Like I don't know. The songwriting is pretty good, actually, especially given the 7-year hiatus. They were still tight musicians. I would say it's a decent comeback album, but I will also say that when this came out, I was waiting and waiting for it, and it just didn't quite. It just didn't quite live up to my expectations, I guess you could say. By the way, these last 2 albums came out on Nuclear Blast Records, and I forgot to say that. They are actually still signed to Nuclear Blast as far as I can remember. So they would put that album out, and then they would go on another 9-year hiatus, which sucks, because I love Immortal so much. I want them to put out an album every couple years, but you just don't get that with them sometimes. So yeah, it would be another 9-year gap. They would come back in 2018 with this album right here, Northern Chaos Gods. Kind of a lot to say about this album, actually. This would be the first Immortal album ever to not feature a Both. He was not in the band anymore. He was out of the picture. He was putting out solo albums, which, to be honest, are not good. In fact, the first Both solo album, he has said that was supposed to be an Immortal album. Had that came out as an Immortal album, it would have been terrible. I would have been so disappointed. So I did buy his album, his first 2 actually. I bought them as they came out, and man, talk about disappointment. Those albums are just not that fucking good. So really cool. You got Demonaz, not only is he back playing guitar, you probably know, but I haven't mentioned, he, for the last, what, 10, 15 years, something like that, he had only been writing lyrics. They still considered him part of the band, but he had really, really bad tendonitis and he couldn't play guitar. Or at least he couldn't play, guitar on the level that Immortal needs. So I don't know what happened, if he had surgery that worked out, or if he just given it a break for all those years. I don't know if he just recovered. I don't know. I don't know where his stamina is. Can he play for a long time? Can he just play long enough to record songs? I'm not sure, but he's back in full force. Not only is he back on guitar, he's doing the vocals on this entire album. This is the only Immortal album that doesn't have a Bath on vocals. I will admit, when I heard news of that, prior to this coming out, I was excited, but I was not expecting much. Needless to say, this album blew my expectations, just completely crushed them. This album is really, really good. God, dude, the first song on this, the title track, is one of the best songs Immortal have done in decades. It actually even, the sound of it kind of harkens back to early Immortal. It sounds like something that could have been on Battles in the North or maybe Pure Holocaust. This album is kind of like, Pure Holocaust, Battles in the North meets Sons of Northern Darkness. 3 albums that I absolutely love. This is one of the best comeback albums in the history of metal, if you ask me. You also had Peter Tatgren from Hypocrisy playing bass on this album. He had been their producer at this point for a long, long time, so good friends of the band. Now it's been 4 years and I have not heard one peep out of this band. Part of me kind of thinks that this was just kind of Demonaz giving Abath the middle finger. Kind of like him just saying, dude, we don't need you, we can do this without you. And like I said, I was one of the people that said, no, you can't do it without him, you need Abath, but they really don't. His songwriting just isn't interesting anymore. I hate to say it. I love the dude. He's written some classic material, but he just doesn't seem to have the ability to do so anymore. Don't get me wrong. I hope that someday he can give us something killer yet again, but he's shown us that he can't. So until he does, I don't really have a whole lot of faith in the dude, but I do have faith in the Horg and Demonaz version of Immortal. I really, really, really want a new album, guys. Please give it to me. Give it to us. But anyways, that's all I got, guys. 11 albums. I don't know why I didn't just show Immortal. I don't know why I included the Isan album, but I did. A little bit of a spoiler alert. The next video is going to be similar to this one, but it's going to be Immolation. Like I said, I got all mixed up. I should have obviously shown Immolation first, but I didn't. But anyways, that's all I got, guys. I still have a bunch of projects I'm working on that I'm not making a lot of progress. Those videos will come out soon. I don't know. They'll come out when they come out. It's not like it's anything I've announced or anything, but I've just cool projects that I need to finally finish. So news on the t-shirts. I've already said this before, but I am submitting payment for the shirts on April 10th. I've had pre-orders up for a while now. I've gotten a few of those. If you would like to pre-order something, especially if you want a really big size, if you want something bigger than an extra large, that's probably gonna have to be pre-order only because I'm not gonna probably carry any of those. But I will have small, medium, large, and extra large if anyone wants one. Like I said, I'm basically doing this just because I wanted a shirt for myself, but I figured I'll do a small run, and if anyone wants one, I'm selling them insanely cheap, $15, and that's shipped anywhere in the U.S. So, anyways, guys, as always, Louis says hello. He's right there. Thanks for stopping by, and we will talk soon. Cheers.